So it seems very much, Tom, like you're up for a challenge. So on that note, we're going to ask you to demo how we inflate our Packraft.
Okay, you're going to start the top stopwatch.
Oh yeah, can we get go? So while he's over there doing that, then Alistair, I can get all the juicy gossip that Tom didn't tell me the other day. So when he kind of came to you with this idea, what were your first thoughts?
When we're starting off from near our house, and it just sounded like a fantastic adventure. I'd never been in a packraft before. I'd seen a few YouTube videos and thought, oh, that looks pretty good. So yeah, I said, yeah, definitely.
Wow, and am I right in thinking that it was kind of your schedule that was going to kind of dictate the window that you had to do it?
Yeah, I've got two young lads and things like that, so I had a few days when we could fit it in. We also needed to fit it in with the tides as well, because we needed just the right tides for the trip to work.
And that could have really been the kind of make or break.
Oh, yeah, you needed. I think quite a while beforehand, I'd seen that there were these big tides coming, and said to Tom, right, these days would be good. But of course, what you don't know at that time is what the rest of the weather is going to be like.
So we'll maybe come to the weather that you encountered a little bit. I like that you flinched then. The weather you encountered a bit further on. But what do you think it was then? Obviously, you've got a great rapport with Tom anyway, but the skill set maybe that you had to offer, or kind of maybe some character traits that he obviously saw in you as a good partner for this expedition?
Well, I think allegedly I was meant to know about how to work out the tide times for leaving Arnside and then getting back up the next estuary. So I think that was the bit of knowledge he was hoping for.
That was the key,
and,
a clincher.
Yeah. And again, as Tom said, we've been to some pretty grim and squalid places in North Yorkshire together, and I think he probably thought, if you can manage that, then you'll probably be all right doing this.
Yeah,
so,
I think his words were, when we spoke before this, were that he knew you wouldn't complain, and that then he felt he could handle the grimness as long as the other person wasn't complaining.
yeah. So although after the first night, it was. Started to think, maybe.
Yeah. And I don't know if you'd want people to know this, but you have quite an insight into the watery world.
I've always liked water and waves and so on. So, after my degree, carried on. And my postgrad is in looking at waves.
So fluid dynamics, is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So
wow, so really are the master. So Tom, is that you ready?
That's all ready to go, yeah.
Wow. So did we have a time on that?
That is 7 minutes 45.
7 minutes 45. And I think you were kindly trying to be quite quiet in the background there, which may have added a minute or two, possibly.
Yeah, it also helps if you're outside. We've got a bit of a breeze to catch the air in the inflation bag.
Sure. I feel like you're heckling for a 5 minute here.
I'm quite pleased with that, but could have been better.
Fantastic. So if you want to bring it up, we'll have a little look at it.
Okay.
So thanks for that, Tom. Alistair and I are worn out watching you inflate the raft. But it's smaller than I imagined it was going to be. But, still clearly does the trick.
There's a lot of buoyancy in it, and this one's also got a cunning little zip on the side. You can put your equipment inside the inflated part of the raft, which makes you a lot more stable in the water, or so I thought.
Aha! I feel like this might be alluding to some kind of interesting moment en route. So, in terms of packrafting in general then, this brand, Kokopelli, is that right?
Kokopelli Packraft, yeah.
Is that something that you kind of looked into and that had been recommended to you, or kind of how did it come to be this particular one that you got?
I bought one of these rafts, Kokopelli raft, off eBay second-hand to start with. I was quite impressed with how it is made, so purchased another one towards the end of last year. Things got a bit cold over winter, so it was really only the sort of spring, early summer when I started sort of exploring the lakes and rivers with the pack rafts.
So we know that the journey starts out in the bay, kind of outside both of your houses. So how much kind of preparation time was there kind of to get you to that start line? Obviously, you've got your time window that was kind of fairly dictated already. So yeah, how did you prepare for that?
I think Tom came around the evening before, a couple of evenings before, and he showed me how to put a pack raft up in the garden. And then he said, I think you'd got the stove, hadn't you? And he said, bring some food. And yes, we packed a bit of food. And that was it, really, until, he came to pick me up the following morning, very early on, yeah. So
by the time you actually embarked on that first kind of bit of paddling into the bay, that was your first time for you and second time?
Yeah, just the second time in the bay. It's somewhere that demands a lot of respect. I have spent more time running across the bay, bizarrely enough, than actually being on the water in the bay.
So kind of describing that environment for anyone that's not kind of familiar with Morecambe Bay, it's incredibly flat and hugely tidal, kind of expanse of sand, isn't it? So like you just said, then you can actually run across it at one point and then you can have this huge tide come in and then all of a sudden the whole thing's underwater fairly quickly. So like you said, an environment that commands quite a lot of respect. Safety kit wise, what kind of things did you take with you?
We've got, fortunately you're quite close to land, aren't you? Most of the way around, so phones are the easiest way actually of getting help. So I think we've both got our phones, and I'd got a whistle. And so I think did you get a whistle in the end?
I do have a whistle on my buoyancy aid. Yeah.
So we are wearing buoyancy.
So, yeah.
And I don't know whether it's just my instructor head on, but I'm thinking throw lines and knives and first aid kits and things like that.
Yeah, we had a few basics like that. We did have a throw line that came in really important for actually constructing my raft tarp tent. Actually, so throw line is to be recommended.
Excellent. And then in terms of the kind of clothing that you wore for the endeavours, you had some pretty wild weather, didn't you? How did you dress for the occasion?
Well, Alistair turned up in a dry suit, and I felt jealous for the whole 4 days, really.
What was
well,
he
not
wearing?
so much the first day.
I'm really, really soft, and I don't like getting wet and cold. So I put my dry suit on the first morning, and I think, other than sleeping, I just kept it on the whole time. There was no way I was taking it off. It was... I took it off for a bit of a walk, but yeah, it was wet and cold.
Yeah.
So.
But you decided, don't need a dry suit.
Yeah, I had some sort of merino woolen clothing. I had a neoprene vest on. The main way of keeping warm was just to keep moving. Although it was middle of August, but in the Lake District that doesn't mean a lot. But there's a lot of water, there's a lot of wind, but I suppose it wasn't too cold. But it even in the middle of August, you've got to be careful with your clothing out in the mountains.
Have you invested in a dry suit since?
I've actually got some specific chill cheetah clothing, it's called.
So you've learned from the error of your
definitely.
ways. And then, actually getting going, it sounds like you could have kind of almost been scuppered at the first hurdle. The first kind of few minutes almost seemed like they were pretty eventful.
Well, yeah, we set off, didn't we? It was a beautiful, beautiful morning. The sunrise was gorgeous, wasn't it? And the tide was just as we hoped it would be, and got swept away from Arnside just as we were expecting. But the next place we wanted to go to was Grange, and we're pretty sure that the channel headed over towards Grange. But then Grange started getting further away as we carried on being swept along. And we sort of had to make the decision that we weren't going to Grange, and it was time to get out and walk. Yeah.
Yeah, we nearly ended up in Morecambe, which is completely the wrong direction.
Yeah. So it could have been a much longer route than initially planned.
Yeah.